Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Not my normal Sunday morning chat because, well, in between bouts of busyness this week, there have been bouts of laziness and bouts of looking at things that need doing and not getting on with them. And I know this is going to sound daft, but to set the tripod up and be in the video, I would feel guilty today because I haven't got a clean shirt to put on. I know that sounds daft, but you know, I haven't got on with washing and stuff. And the shirt I had on yesterday evening, I managed to spill some of my nice cream and wine and pepper sauce that I put on my steak down the front of my flipping shirt. And I haven't got a clean one to put on, so I'm not doing it. I'm sure you come here to see the orchids and listen to the words, not actually look at me, but there's a limit to how scruffy I'm prepared to be on camera, and today is one of those days. Scruffy it is, and not on the camera it is. That's it. Before I get onto the subject, a plug. I'm quite happy to do plugs for friends that run their own YouTube channels. So Rachel has got a giveaway of one of these. Now that's a big deal. These don't come cheap. They are good, but they don't come cheap. So she's doing a giveaway of a Spider Farmer SF1000. There are conditions. It's an international giveaway, but you still have to be in a certain country, because I think that's the countries that it can be sent to. So the states are included: Canada, UK, Germany, and possibly some others from memory. Those are the ones I can remember anyway. So pop over to Rachel's channel, Gardening at Douentza, have a listen and a watch of the video, see her digging one out of a box and having a chat about it. And she pointed out something that when I got mine I missed completely. There's a screw on the back of the unit that adjusts the power. So the first thing I need to do is get mine down and actually see if it's on full. You see what I mean? It might not be set to its maximum power. So I need to check that to get the maximum power out of it. The reason being, the distance from my plants is greater than recommended. So if I can up the power a bit, that'll be worth doing. Right, so that's the plug out of the way. I mean, I've asked to go into the drawer on the grounds that I could use a second one. I really could. The first one is up the top. So I've got these two pointing in this direction, and then I've got that one pointing generally across the rest, but the distance is quite great. And I thought, you know, my lower shelves aren't getting much light at all from that particular grow light. I could actually set one up down here pointing across. So although the light would be coming from the side, it still would be getting into these lower shelves. And as I've learnt recently, things like Masdevallias and Draculas do not necessarily need to be in the deep shade. So that might brighten them up a bit. And the logic of my lights is to extend the day length in our miserably short, dull days in the UK. Right, so that's the plug out of the way. And when I'm doing things like technical or kit or that related, people often come up with suggestions. Some of them are not practical and wouldn't work in here, or would be too expensive to actually implement, but they're good ideas nonetheless, and somebody's just come up with a brilliant idea. A while ago you heard me say that there are some plants that don't like fans on them because it dehydrates the leaves by blowing a draft across them. So I turned my little fans off, and it worries me a little bit about these down here because they're, in effect, they're cooling fans. Now I don't need to worry about cooling this time of year, but somebody said, why don't you turn them round the other way and suck the air across the plants and point the draft somewhere where it doesn't matter. Now you think about the logic of that. A fan draws in air that basically has very little speed to it and concentrates it and blasts it out the front. Well, if it worked the other way round, the air that would be drawn into the little fans would be moving quite slowly, but it would be moving. So it would draw air from a distance and concentrate it out the other side where it doesn't matter. Such a simple idea. Just turn them round the other way. So although that's going to be a right flipping faff to do, I think it's worth doing, because I'd then get some airflow. Because at the moment, the air is totally still in here. Warm air rises, and obviously there's a little bit of movement there, but my plants are static. There's no air movement at all until night time, when the heater and the big fan come on to distribute that heat. But again, the big fan up here that oscillates isn't really that close to any plant, so it's not not drying them out in theory. So yeah, turn the little fans round the other way. Now the ones up there, that might not work, simply because they're so close to the wall, in effect. Where would the air go that you're blasting out the other side? So they might need thinking again and possibly moved. But the idea being that those little fans could come back into use to circulate air more slowly, and where the fast flow of air is coming out the front of the fan, it points somewhere where it's not getting on plants. So it'll be a slower circulation, but it would still circulate air. So we might have a go at that. Right, today's subject is routines. Are they good or bad? Well, it depends what you're talking about. So obviously this is relevant to sort of me and my days, and then moving on to orchids. Now, working people have not got a lot of spare time. They need to do their work, and in a lot of cases that's 5 or possibly even 6 days a week. And you get up in the morning, you go to work. That's what you do. And on the days when you don't do that, they're called the day off. And a lot of people have to cram quite a bit into those days off to get the rest of their lives sorted out. So they tend to be pretty busy people. And somewhere in there, you've got to find time for your orchids. And you're going to be finding less time for your orchids than some others like me who are retired. Now, a routine for me, I get up in the morning. Yeah, I try to do that every day. And it is a routine. And when you're retired, all the days are the same. There isn't really a weekend or a weekday. They're just days. They all just blur in together and can become incredibly samey. And therein lies a problem with routines. They get boring because they're samey. And boredom generates neglect. It generates sometimes a will that isn't there because it's a routine. And my daily routine is to get up, sort the cats out, otherwise they just get under my flipping feet, get myself a coffee sorted out, fire up the computer. The first thing I do is check my emails. I've got 4, but 2 of them are in general use. One of them is what I call my everyday use email. That's linked to things like eBay and stuff like that. So I check that one out, see if there's anything needs dealing with, and that's where all the emails come in for the Orchid Society, for the magazine and stuff. So I have to keep my eye on that, keep on top of that one. So I deal with that, get rid of all the rubbish and the flipping spam emails, begging for money, all that sort of stuff. And then I move on to my other main email, which is the one that's linked to this channel. And I do get some emails that sometimes take quite an elaborate response. So they don't necessarily get dealt with there and then, they get left. And they get left to when I've actually got proper spare time to sit down and do justice to them. So that gets the emails out of the way. And I do them in the order that my channel email is logged into second, because in Google you can't log into 2 at once. You have to come out of one and go into another one. That way I can just switch straight over to my YouTube comments. Yeah. Now, as I've said, my orchids are my hobby. My YouTube channel I think of as my work. It's my job. And it's a 7-day-a-week job for me. Doesn't take up all day like some jobs, but it needs to be done, and I do it first thing in the morning with a couple of coffees, sat at the computer while I wake up. Because I've found when you try and work with orchids first thing in the morning, you start knocking things over, dropping things, missing things out, and you just need to wake up properly and be up and running, if you know what I mean. So that's the reason for doing all the computer stuff first. Plus it's usually dark. What else can I do? What else can you do at that time of day? So it serves a purpose. And then I get all my YouTube comments done, and they can take some time. You know, sometimes that's a couple of hours. It's not continuous. I do stop and have another coffee now and again. But yeah, so I get that done, and all comments on my channel get a response of some sort, even if it's just an acknowledgement to say, yes, I've seen and read your comment. You know, if somebody says thanks for sharing, then I say you're welcome. You know, a great video, thanks. They get a response. And some need some work. You know, there's some questions in there that I can't directly answer and have to go and check things or look stuff up, and I'm happy to do that. It's my job. It's work. It's as though the boss has looked up and said, deal with that comment. So I do. So I get all that done. Time is now ticking on. It's probably got light by now, depending on what ridiculous time I got up. And then I move over to Facebook and I have a look at my friends and family Facebook first, and then I move over to my Facebook group. And there will be normally some people that have asked to join. So I have a look. Have they answered my question? And if they can't be bothered to do that, then I'm probably not going to be bothered to let them join. You know, and deal with the joiners, get them approved. And then there'll be sometimes a shed load of posts that need approving. Well, I don't just blandly approve those. I do check them. I do go and have a look. Are these orchid related? Have they got any rude words in? You know, there are things that can get you excluded from a post. Not many, and I got a good group, a good bunch. So that very rarely happens. So anyway, those get approved, and then to be polite, I go back and put a like against every single post that's been approved. And that gets the ball rolling. Yeah, so that's that done. I've then got to look at the comments that have come in on that group, because some of those are directed at me. So they need a response, so I need to deal with those. So that gets most of the computer stuff out of the way. I then go back to my YouTube channel and I have a look at other people's videos, those that I'm subscribed to. Does this sound like a routine? It's exactly that. What thought does it require? Virtually none, because it's a routine. It's a daily routine. It doesn't require any brain power. Now, okay, some of the comments need some thinking to get an answer, but that small doses, not massive amount of brain power going missing here. So, yeah, so I then have a watch of some of the other people's videos, and I always hit the like button if I watch somebody else's video. And sometimes I'll leave a comment if I can think of one that's relevant, or an idea that perhaps has come to me that wasn't in the video, just to put another idea across, that sort of thing. So that's that done, basically. And in amongst that section of stuff, most of that is one-off. I do it first thing in the morning and I don't return. Now that could mean that somebody leaves a comment 10 minutes after I've finished dealing with my comments. They're not going to get an answer till the next day. Yeah, and that's how it is. My Facebook group I do return to, not always, but some days I'll have another look in the afternoon, because it eases the workload the next day if I deal with it twice a day. But dealing with it literally takes a couple of minutes. It's not a big deal. So that's my sort of routines. That gets all the computer related issues out of the way. By now it's breakfast time. Tummy's rumbling, so let's get that done and get the breakfast out of the way. And then I might think about getting dressed. If I'm not going anywhere or not doing anything, I might not bother. You know, I'm not going outside. Nobody's coming in. What does it matter? So sometimes I don't get dressed. Other times I do. But then we're now into the normal day. It's light, you know, house is warm, doors open here to the grow room, Some warmth has got out here. I mean, we're heading up towards 20 degrees at the moment. My humidity is low. 57, yeah, a bit lower than it ought to be perhaps, but I'll be watering some stuff in a minute. That soon starts raising it with water dripping on the floor. It doesn't take much. And then once I get out here to start working with my orchids, routines go out the window. They're not there. Now, I do have watering cycles, but I don't call them routines, especially now we're into the winter. Yesterday and part of the day before, I watered all of my normal pots, so not the cooler growers, not the holy clay pots, and not the mounts. And some of those were still wet. And that had been 10 days since they were last looked at, and they were still wet. Now, I could say, well, in 10 days' time, I'll have a look at them. What happens to the ones that got missed because they were still wet? Are they going to go another 10 days? Probably not. Because if I did that, they'd probably be bone dry and may have been dry for 5 or 6 days. Now, for some plants, that wouldn't really do them any harm. Now, there's a lot of plants in here this time of year and not growing. Well, they don't need to stay wet. Yeah, but there's some that could put a stall on them, you know. Some oncidiums that are in vigorous growth, if they dry out for any length of time, you'll get the old crinkle leaves on the go, the stop-start thing, you know, which I can do without. It's unsightly if nothing else. So, I appreciate people grow in the home. Your conditions don't change so much. So a routine there, with regular watering, could be perfectly fine on the grounds that the environment in a home doesn't change that much. The one thing that does change that people tend to forget or don't appreciate is light levels. Yeah, and obviously your light sources, unless you've got artificial light, comes in from windows. Now, in the winter in the UK, the sun is low in the sky. And if it comes in a window, it's bright, but it's not strong. It's good light, but it's not burning light. Yeah, and that sun wouldn't come in that window in the height of summer because it would be too high in the sky. So your light levels can change dramatically in the home through the seasons, and it's quite important to appreciate that. And that is probably going to mean moving some plants around. That's a break in routine. Yeah, the plant isn't living where it always lives, it needs moving, and a bit of thought needs to go into that. But a watering routine based on a calendar in a home is not such a daft idea. Out here it is, in this grow room. That would be a silly idea. Like I said, I've gone 10 days between waterings and some things still haven't used up the moistures in the pot. So that frequency needs adjusting and thinking about constantly as the seasons change. Now, I had a little bit of a stall between when the light levels were dropping down. I wasn't getting the temperatures in here because the sun's lost its strength, so it doesn't warm up in here very much. So things were slowing right down. And that went over for a period of a few weeks, but then it got to the point where the night temperature was dropping down too much and I had to get the heater going. It's an electric heater. It pushes out dry air, and any moisture in the air that it's sucking in the back to push through the heater gets dried. So my air's getting drier out here now, as I've just said. Less than 60% humidity at 20 degrees. I'd rather that said 65. The difference isn't enough to start panicking. And as I said, I'm about to do some watering in here with the mounts, and that will raise the humidity. Splashing water about and having soggy mounts lying around evaporating into the air, that'll help. Yeah. So yeah, you've got to keep your eye on routines. So are they good or bad? They can be both. They really can be both. My morning routine for me is brilliant, but I've got that time because I'm retired, and that's not going to change. doing all that stuff that I do first thing in the morning at a different time of day would get in the way of other things that I've got to do. So it's the best time to do it. It's a brilliant routine. I love it. And I don't have to think about it. You know, if you're going to start chopping and changing routines about, you have to put some thought into it, don't you? So, yeah, routines can be good, but they can be bad. And we'll repeat the comment. If you do the same thing over and over again, you are highly likely to get exactly the same results. If those results are great, then why change it? If they're not, then perhaps you ought to have a think about changing a routine, doing something a bit different. Yeah? A different frequency, possibly a different time of day. If I came out here first thing in the morning and tried to water my mounts, I can virtually guarantee there would be some damage. There would be some dropped on the floor, some knocked, some spikes bashed. It wouldn't be an ideal time for me to do that sort of physical thing with the stretching up, reaching out, hooking things up to let them drip, you know, missing the hook, dropping the plant on the floor. And I know that from experience, because when I was working, I used to have to do that before I went to work. Now, luckily, I didn't have anywhere near as many plants, but those sort of things still happened. We still drop plants, you know. You get a mount like this, yeah? You lift it down from up there, and all these dangly bits down here are down here. Well, that's where they start knocking things, yeah? You get something down from round the back of that rack. Now, I've got to get all the stuff off the front before I can even reach round there. I'm stretching right at the maximum reach to lift a plant down, push it out there, and try and get it in through this gap. And if there's a tall plant here with a spike on it, I'll knock the spike. Or I could catch the leaves and knock the whole pot over. Now, it might just fall over on the shelf, but it could fall off the shelf. It could land on something else and damage that. If you remember once, this beastie here, full of lava rock, fell, and it landed right on top of a Miltoniopsis with blooms. It did damage. This is heavy. This is full of lava rock. Well, that spike's pushing on in there, isn't it? Oh, goody. Quite looking forward to seeing what those blooms look like, because although it bloomed once, it hadn't done it since, and I've forgotten what they look like. I think they're fragrant. Yeah, so some routines are good, some routines are not so good. You have to think about the logic of the routine. Is what you're applying it to changing in the background and you're not adjusting? And certainly watering frequencies are where it can go wrong. Yeah, where plants through the winter, you water them on a reasonable, regular basis and everything seems fine. And then come the spring, your temperatures start going up and your day lengths increase and growth increases as a consequence. You've got to change. You've got to keep up. Yeah? And then you've got to start slowing down at the other end when that process reverses. In the middle, what we call the summer, that's when it gets a bit manic. You know, that's when I'm down to daily watering of mounts. That's a big chore. So adapting a routine to do that chore, a sequence, makes it work, because it then doesn't require the thought, because I'm doing the same thing each day. Same sequence, start in a certain place, do a set number of plants, hang them up to drip, take a break, come back in, put them back, get the next lot down, water them, hang them up to drip, set number of plants each time, set place to hang them, back in the same place they came from. Occasionally, I might break that and think, actually, you're not doing so well there. I think you could do with a bit more light. We'll move you to a different rack. It's not exactly a big change, is it? So, routines, good for some and good for some purposes, and not perhaps so good for others. Working people have probably just got to stick to those sort of routines because the choices are taken away. You know, as I say, I've had to go through that. And so be it. You know, you just have to adapt and do the best you can. I would like to show you this, and sort of wouldn't as well. My Miltonia Queen Anne has opened its first bloom. So Anne, your namesake, is open. But, there is a but, I'm afraid. That bloom is distorted. Look at that velvety purple, that's a gorgeous colour. But we have a bit of colour break on the petals and sepals, and we've got one petal that hasn't formed properly. Now we've still got some more buds to open. It also opened upside down. Cheers. Or sideways, more like. And it's got its lip tangled up with the buds instead of being hanging free. Now, what could that be? It could be something quite nasty, but that's the least likely because it's growing well. But what else could it be? It's been sat here, yeah? What's just up there while those buds were forming? I wonder. Can excessive light spoil blooms in the bud phase? Bearing in mind I've been told off that my Miltonias have been getting too much light through the summer period. Well, you know, that summer period's over. There's no such thing as too much light in here now. But there might be when I turn that beastie on, because that is powerful. And it's a totally different light to these. Not the spectrum. The spectrum's incredibly similar. They are daylight spectrum lights. But these lights, because of the lens, form a focused beam. It literally comes out at 45 degrees, so a 90-degree angle. And that's it. The light outside of that beam is negligible. It's just not there. So these are a quite defined beam. That one's not. That one spreads the light out quite dramatically in all directions. And certainly within a couple of feet of it, it's strong light in those directions as well. So that's not directional. The light just floats away from it in, you know, most directions. Almost straight out. There is a bit of an angle, yeah, but it's certainly not a 45-degree angle. It spreads. So I wonder whether some things have been a bit close. It's making me worry about this bud here, or, well, when we get some, on my Laelia anceps, because that's in the line of fire. The other one isn't, but this one is. I can't put it anywhere else. I can't get both of those buds out the way. So we have to compromise. We shall see. But that may be the test. But then Laelia anceps is a highlight plant. So it's unlikely to do any substantial harm or distortions. But that's food for thought. Why is that first bloom? It's not the first time this plant has bloomed, but it's the first time it's bloomed for a long time. So it could almost be classed as a first time bloom, certainly on this end of the plant. Yeah? Because it's growing in two directions. But it's growing okay. You know, I've got 3 new growths up this end of the plant. That's 2 more than I was expecting. Now up the end with the bloom, we've only got 1 new one. But looking at where it started, it's highly likely to push another one out. In fact, I can see a swelling at the base. So maybe that end's going to push out 2. But it's certainly got 1. And it's come out at the back of the latest growth, up against the previous growth, which was a weak one. Yeah? So you can watch your light levels. You can overcook it. But anyway, we have the colours, even if we don't have the perfectly formed bloom, and we'll see what the next 2 buds come out like. But you see what I mean about the gorgeous velvety colour of this one. It's a beauty. Would have been better perfectly formed, but so be it. So, oh well, I suppose we better have a look at this. I haven't got a clue how long these are going to last. This is the Dendrobium glomeratum. They're lovely blooms, very large. You know, for this type of cluster bloom, some of the biggest. These are 2 good clusters. Well, this hasn't bloomed for years. And yeah, I was debating the size of this plant, and somebody sent me a photo via email of a specimen version of Glomeratum. The canes were about 4 foot long, and there was about 100 of them on the plant, and it was in a pot. So they'd had to put metal rings around all the canes to hold them together. So although it seems to be described frequently as a small growing plant, it obviously isn't necessarily. Now, it could be due to conditions in its native environment. It could be stunted by that environment. You get it in cultivation and it lets rip and becomes a giant. So, you know, some of the words, you know, that you read are not necessarily right when you take things out of the wild and put them in cultivation, where they do get a bit mollycoddled. They get routines applied to them. There ain't many routines in Mother Nature. Now, okay, in the tropical rainforests, you can virtually guarantee during the wet season it's going to rain every day, but the length of time it rains might vary and the amount that falls each day might vary, but they're going to get rain, you know. And then when you get into the drier winter seasons for those type of environments, there is some rain now and again, but it becomes totally unpredictable. Nobody goes round with a watering can on Saturday because it's watering day. That ain't going to happen. So watch your routines, analyse them, give them some thought instead of just doing it. That's the trouble with a routine, it becomes a habit. They're almost one and the same. So you just do it, and you don't necessarily apply the thought. So sometimes it's worth just taking a step back and thinking, this is what I do on this day every week. Should that change? Just question it. If you've got no other way of doing something, then there's not a lot you can do, is there? But you might be able to do something. Yeah? So have a think about routines, and they're going to apply to most of you, I'm sure. Yeah? We've all got them. Even if it's just that routine we could probably do without, where we get up and go to work every flipping day, you know. So have a think about routines, and are they the right routine for your set of plants in your environment? And remember, they have to change with the seasons. You're going to be lucky to get away with doing everything the same year round, but you're more likely to get away with those sort of routines in the home, where the environment doesn't change so much. But I tell you what will change, certainly in the UK, over the last couple of weeks. I'll bet your heating's been on a lot more than normal. What does heating do? Dries the air. Yeah. That might be worth thinking about. Drier air. Yeah. Plants evaporating moisture through the leaves faster than they would normally do. Using up the moisture in the pot a bit quicker, perhaps. Worth thinking about. Yeah. So anyway, as I say, sorry it was a bit different today and me not being in it, but I'm sure most of you come here for the words and the plants. That's what you're here for. You don't want to see my ugly mug in the video all the time, especially today because I haven't had a shave or anything. I'm going to have a lazy day. I've got work to do, but I can do without tarting myself up as part of it. So I've missed that bit out today. Change the routine. Oh, and we'll have a quick look at that as well. See, now that's something I need to do today. I posted some pictures on the Facebook group of things to come, and I said we'll have a look at these as they progress. Well, that one's now progressed, so I now need to take a photo of that and update that little bit on the Facebook page. Now, I don't post very often on my Facebook group. I don't need to. With an average of 20 posts a day going up on there, there's more than enough for people to look at. You know, if you went there once a week, I hate to think how long it would take to scroll down through all the new posts since you last looked. Some of you people got more time than you should have. Anyway, so, you know, I've got a little bit to do on the Facebook group today. I did say I'd keep people posted with those. Oh, and some people queried the post I put up there. I said I'm abusing my admin privileges, and a lot of people didn't understand what I meant. As I'm the only admin, I'm the only one that can switch a comment to an announcement. And announcements sit at the top of the page. And that's abuse of my privileges, because whenever you get in there, mine's the first one you see, which I don't normally do unless it's just words. But as this is a little sequence, I thought we'll do it. Nobody's actually complained yet. I think a lot of people didn't even realise what was going on, but that's what I meant by abuse of admin privileges. I can stick a post at the top of the page and make it stay there and not scroll down, so I won't be doing it frequently, that's for sure. The group is for you lot, really. It's not for me. So it's your posts that are important, not mine. This is the only other thing that's going to open soon, is my Dendrobium Alexandria. That's coming soon, but not today. Probably another 2 days before that fully opens. Slow, very slow to progress, which is often the case with something that's going to last a long time, because these blooms will be on this plant at least 2 months, maybe longer. So it's worth the wait. But a gorgeous patterning on the back. I've forgotten what the inside of the plant looks like, but I think it's greens and purples mainly. So, well, we'll find out soon, won't we? And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to all the waffle. And as I said at the beginning, pop over to Gardening at Derwentsa if you're in the appropriate countries, and who knows, you might be the proud owner of one of those down the line. They are good. I'm not so sure they warrant the price they are in the UK on Amazon, but they do the job. Really good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, and I forgot. There's another routine that I've got. Getting a video sorted out every day. Now, I miss a day now and again, you know, but yeah, that's something else that's part of the routine. But I will admit that I don't necessarily film every day. I do get some times when I've made 3 or 4 videos in a single day. And that gives me some time off from actually doing the filming. But I still need to post those videos, so I've still got a little bit of YouTube work to do. Like I said, I get paid for it. It's work. I'm happy to do it. So that's another little bit of a routine, is the actual filming and processing the videos. There's a little slot in the day for doing that. It's not normally first thing in the morning, because I haven't got any flipping light out here, so I do have to wait. That tends to be mid-morning towards lunchtime when I film out here. That's when I've got my best light, like I have today. Subdued sunlight today, hazy. But it casts shadows, it gives some contrast, yeah? There's one there. The light's just catching that, so it's got a bit of backlight, gives it some contrast. In the shade, that's just plain white, whereas now it's different shades. So timing of filming can be important to add interest, you know. This hasn't got any light, so it's a uniform lit bloom. So there's not a lot of contrast there. Yeah, so I have to think about the time of day I'm filming and what I'm filming, which bit of the grow room it's in. So again, it's a sort of routine, but it's a routine that needs thought this time round. So it isn't really a routine, is it? The action of filming and doing the video is a routine, but not what's in it, not what it's about. So that isn't really a routine. It gives me a variety, gives me something to do, something to think about. See you next time.